The elderly woman stood on her porch watching the crowd in the park. It was a small park. However, it regularly hosted events because of its central location in the city. This one appeared to be some bicycling event. Her neighbors complained about the noise, parking, and litter, but the elderly lady welcomed them. A soft, high-pitched whistle drifted from the open front door, and the dog next door began barking. "It's too early." "Yes, too early. Perhaps in 1 hour. An hour will do," she said to no one, and sat in a rusted metal chair near her door. She rocked back and forth, humming to herself. After a while, when the sun had dropped and the shadows shifted, she stood. "It is time," she thought. The whistle from earlier repeated, but had a lower register, a musical affirmation that it was, indeed, time. She carefully stepped off the porch and walked across the street, her long gray hair flowing behind her in the slight breeze. She had chosen someone long before ever leaving the porch and found him in conversation with 2 other young men. Throughout the day he had visited the various tents and would occasionally leave in a vehicle, only to return with more ice or fruit. She was hopeful the other 2 would leave when she made her request. "Excuse me?" she said in a soft, trembling voice. Bill turned around. "Yes, ma'am. How can I help you?" he replied. The other 2 waited, obviously thinking it would be a quick question, after which they could continue their discussion. "I was wondering if you might be able to help me," she asked in the same soft voice she hoped might be interpreted as frail. It had worked so well in the past. "Yes, how can I help you?" he repeated, thinking the elderly woman might be lost and confused. If so, he would have Alex or Stuart escort her over to the announcer's tent. "I live across the street, and I was wondering if you could help me," she asked. "Did you need some help crossing the street?" he asked. "No, it's just something is wrong across the street, just there." She pointed in a vague direction of her house. "And I was hoping you could help me," she said yet again. Is something wrong at your house? Would you like me to call the police or fire department?" he asked, struggling to hide his irritation. The other 2 better wait, he thought. It would be just like Stuart to take off. "Oh no, nothing like that, no. There is an odd smell coming from my cellar," the elderly woman said. "Cellar? Who has a cellar around here?" Alex said. Bill cut him off with a look before he turned back to the old woman. "Something smells? It could be gas. If so, we should call the fire department and gas company," Bill suggested, dismissing his earlier irritation, given that this could be a serious issue. "Oh my, no," she explained. "Well, it's a little embarrassing, but I think it might be a dead animal. A rodent or something." "A dead animal," he replied. He turned to Alex and Stuart, who seemed to be ready to depart the conversation. Bill held them there with a quick shake of the head. "Where is your house?" "Just there, across the street. Oh, I would be very thankful if you could help me," the elderly woman replied, and again pointed in the general direction of her house. Bill's shoulders sagged, and he let out a small sigh. "Sure, we can take a look," he said, making sure it was clear to Alex and Stuart that they would be going as well. "We?" Stuart asked. "Yes, we," Bill replied firmly. "Oh heavens, I don't want to be a bother for all 3 of you. If you could just take a quick look, I would be ever so grateful," she said, hoping the other 2 would take the opportunity and leave. "No, it's fine. We don't mind," Bill told her. "Please, after you." She turned and, with a frown of disappointment, began walking back to her house. She again hoped the other 2 would sneak away before they arrived at her house. The elderly woman could hear them quietly talking about her. "Why do we have to go?" Alex asked. "You worried she might hit on you?" Stuart said. Bill stopped and swung his left arm sideways, and his large hand smacked Stuart in the stomach with a dull thud. Stuart grunted more from the surprise than pain. "Knock it off. Let's take a quick look and leave. We have too many things to wrap up," Bill said. They walked the remainder of the way in silence. The elderly lady paused at the porch. Bill, taking the hint, walked up and held his arm out for support. She grabbed Bill's arm with a very firm, almost painful grip. When he tensed up, she relaxed her grip. Under the steps, she led them into the house, stopping in the kitchen. Bill looked around. It could be a museum, he thought. A 50s-looking standalone stove and oven sat against the far wall. The washer looked even older, and there was no dryer or dishwasher. The floor was wood, strewn with a couple of threadbare rugs. They were standing next to a 2-person table, and next to that was a crude wood slat door set into the kitchen floor. The elderly woman moved to lift the door. "The stairs are just under here," she said. "That is where it smells." "Let me get that," Bill said. The door was not as heavy as it looked and opened easily on shiny, well-oiled hinges. He stepped back, peering into a well of darkness. Bill took a couple of experimental sniffs. "I don't smell anything." "Yes, but you can in the cellar, like a dead rodent. I looked, but I couldn't find it. I can show you if you like," the elderly woman offered. "No, I will take a look. Is there a light I can switch on?" "I'm sorry, it doesn't work, and I tried a new bulb. You can use my flashlight," the elderly woman said and handed Bill an old metal flashlight. Bill took the flashlight. It looked as old as the stove and washer. He thumbed the switch forward, and a weak yellow beam penetrated the cellar's darkness, or tried to. He stepped onto the first crude stair, and it wobbled under his weight. How the hell does she not fall? Bill thought. He stopped after 2 more steps and turned to look at Stuart and Alex. "I'll be right back," Bill said with a look promising dire consequences should he return and find them gone. He continued down the stairs and completely disappeared into the darkness. The weak beam of yellow light showed him little. There was a cellar window at the bottom of the stair, but it had been covered or was so filthy, no light could penetrate. Bill swung the beam left and right. There was a smell, but it was not any dead animal. It was coffee. Why did she say it was a dead animal? Bill muttered to himself. Immediately to his right was a series of wooden shelves. Dust covered everything, including several odd-looking bottles with torn and faded labels. He tried to read one, but the original cursive writing was too faded. An old workbench occupied the opposite wall, littered with rusty tools and an equally rusted assortment of nails, screws, and nuts. Bill turned again and spied the third wall with more shelves, although these held little dust and debris, except for 6 cans of coffee. He walked towards the shelves and noticed the smell of the coffee strengthened. They were all 5-pound cans and filled to the brim without lids. That explained the coffee smell. Ah, she was masking the odor of the dead animal, he thought. It seemed like an expensive way to do it, and who had that much coffee? "Not the last weird thing, I bet," he said, under his breath. Bill turned again, swinging the feeble beam of yellow light toward the wall behind the stairs. He took a couple of small steps towards the wall. There were no shelves, but there was a door, another crude wood slat door without a doorknob or handle. The hinges looked new, like the door leading into the cellar, but had massive springs. It could be an auto-close mechanism, he thought. Hoping to see if anything was inside, Bill walked to the door and was hit by a horrible stench. He gagged and backed up to the coffee cans, trying desperately not to throw up. He stuck his face over a can and breathed in deeply. "What the hell?" he thought. "That is no dead rodent." He froze when a soft, trilling whistle rolled across the cellar and then stopped. Bill held his breath, straining to listen, but only silence roared back. He stepped forward enough so that the flashlight beams shone on the crude door. He stared at it, as if waiting for something to erupt from behind the door and drag him inside. He wanted to run, but his feet felt rooted in place. He raged at the lack of control willing his feet to move, as he could barely hear a scraping sound beyond the door, like something metallic raked across stone. Bill watched as the door flexed outward, nails and wood protesting the pressure from the other side. He tried again to move, but his feet refused. The whistling began again, then changed register several times, high, then low. It shifted to an even deeper thrumming tone now. The door flexed outward again, and a purplish-brown ooze seeped between the wood slats. The smell was like a physical blow, forcing him to lean back as his feet remained rooted. The tune, yes, it was a tune and not random notes, grew louder. His body's reaction to the tune felt like a deep, buried instinctual switch flipped. He ground his teeth, and his forehead dripped with sweat. A chill fired up his spine, and his hands started to tingle. Bill clenched his fists, driving his fingernails into his palms, hoping the pain would free him. Just when he thought he would scream, Stuart bellowed from the top of the steps through the opening above. "You okay down there?" he asked. Bill stood still for several long seconds before he realized he could move again. He wiped his forehead, and his hand came away damp with sweat. He looked around, and all appeared relatively normal. The coffee smell returned. "Yes, I will be right up," Bill replied finally. He returned to the stairs wondering if he had imagined it. He put a foot on the first step when something odd struck him. The position of the stairs in the kitchen, in coordination with the exterior wall, meant that room beyond the door must be well outside the perimeter of the house's exterior walls. "Shit," he thought. "That's all for me." He looked up and saw Stuart looking down at him as he began climbing back up the steps. "What happened? Did you see something?" Stuart asked. Bill did not reply. About halfway up, one of the wood slat steps shifted downwards like a slide. At the same time, the cellar door tried to swing closed, striking him on the shoulder. Alex rushed forward, pushing the door back, and grabbed Bill's arm. If not, he would have been flung back into that well of darkness. "What the hell?" Stuart said. "Are you all right?" Alex asked. Bill remained silent. He climbed the stairs 2 at a time and handed the flashlight to the old woman. Not stopping to say anything, he quickly walked through the house and out the front door. He picked up his pace after stepping off the porch step. By the time he hit the street, he was at a dead run. Stuart and Alex ran alongside him, peppering him with questions, all of which he ignored. None of them looked back at the house where the elderly woman had returned to the porch, staring at them. Bill finally stopped at the medical tent. He looked around the tent as if seeing it for the first time. Still ignoring Stuart and Alex, he grabbed a small bottle of apple juice and sat down on a cot. He popped the top off and downed the entire bottle, wishing it was something stronger. The med tech walked over and asked if he was okay. Alex said he was. He had a bit of a scare, ran into a dog. The med tech looked over Bill's hunched form and suggested he looked to be in mild shock. Bill finally spoke up. "I'm fine. A dog chased me. Must have conjured up some childhood scare. I feel better now. Thanks." "Is it loose? I should let someone know," the med tech said. No, it was on a chain, but I didn't know until it stopped. That'll teach me not to shortcut a corner. Thanks for asking." "Okay, let me know if you feel different," he replied and walked back to his folding table. Stuart started to say something, but Bill held up a hand. "Not here." So all 3 moved to the comfort tent that was mostly empty. Bill grabbed a banana and ate it quickly. They all sat at a table far from the tent's other occupants. Both Stuart and Alex were opposite him, trying to make eye contact, but Bill's eyes were on the discarded banana peel in front of him. They waited expectantly. Stuart, ever impatient, started to talk. "What happened down there?" I just had a scare, that's all," Bill offered. "Bullshit. You didn't look scared. You ran out of there like something was chasing you," he said. Bill's gaze flitted around the tent. "Shut up, Stuart," Alex said. "You're not helping." "Bill," Alex said. "Bill." Bill finally looked at Alex. "What happened?" Bill peered around the tent again, not out of fear, more like he wanted to see who was in earshot. He took a deep breath and began talking. He covered everything, the coffee, the smell, the door flexing, and the tune. Alex kept Stuart from interrupting, so Bill was able to cover the whole encounter without distraction. When he finished, he placed his palms on the table as an indication. He was done, and being honest. Alex jumped in before Stuart could say anything. So, what do you want to do? I don't know. What can I do? You can tell the fucking cops for starters, Stuart interjected. And tell them what? Alex challenged. That he thinks there's a creature in that old lady's cellar? Well, not a creature, but the smell could indicate something is wrong. I'm not talking to the cops, Bill said resolutely. Stuart slapped the table in frustration. Don't be a pansy, he said, but regretted it immediately. The other people in the tent looked at the three of them for a moment, then returned to their conversations. Bill said in a harsh whisper, Fuck you, Stuart. How about you pop over there and have a peek in that cellar? You'll wet your pants before you're halfway down those creepy-ass steps. Stuart stood up and left the tent in a huff. With Stuart gone, Alex asked Bill again, What do you want to do? Nothing, just forget it happened. Whatever is going on in that cellar is the old woman's problem. I think she is aware of it, Bill said, then stood and walked out of the tent. Several minutes later, the old woman reappeared on the front porch. So unfortunate, the elderly woman thought, and sat down to watch the thinning crowd in the park as the afternoon moved towards the twilight hour. It was nearly dusk when she smiled again as the piping started up. She exited the porch and approached a solitary cyclist walking his bike out of the park. After a few moments, both headed back to her house. She suggested he leave his bicycle in the side yard so nothing would happen to it while he was helping her. He leaned it against the side of the house, then swapped his bike shoes for sandals and his riding shades for his normal glasses. Back around the corner, he climbed the steps and followed the elderly woman inside. I'm so grateful for your help. Are you sure I'm not keeping you from getting home to your family? She said. No, nothing like that. I was just going to ride to the train station to catch the train south for another ride in 2 days. I still have a couple of hours, so I have some time, he explained. She led him into the kitchen and stopped at the small table. Wonderful. I haven't taken a train in quite a while. And you take your bike and backpack. That is very convenient. Yes, very. Saves me a lot of gas as well, he replied. So is this the door? Yes, the light doesn't work, but here's a flashlight. She handed him the same flashlight from earlier. He looked it over. Wow, this might be an antique, but it looks brand new, he said. Oh, I've had it for years and years. I just don't use it often. He lifted the door and stepped down into the darkness. He inspected the shelves and coffee cans before heading to the door. He sniffed twice and could catch just a trace of something foul, but his hay fever was on high, as it was after most rides. He stepped right up to the door and heard a scraping sound, followed by very high-pitched whistling. Maybe she had put her teapot on the stove to offer him some tea. He tried to open the door, but there was no handle, and the gaps in the boards were too small to provide purchase. He stepped back and turned to find something to pry the door open. His eyes began to water, followed by the familiar burning sensation in his nose. He let loose a tremendous sneeze, propelling him forward. His sandal caught in a crack in the cellar floor, flicking it off his foot. Adjusting his glasses, he bent over to pick up his sandal, setting it next to his foot. Before he could put it on, his sinuses began to crackle and opened. He took in a full breath, and the smell caused him to bend over and retch. He stopped and wiped his mouth, deciding it was time to leave. Behind him, he heard a snap, a squeak of springs, and a bang. At the same moment, the door above him slammed closed. Before he could turn around, something struck him mid-back, and he felt something sticky seep through his shirt onto his skin. He was pitched forward, then yanked backwards off his feet. The force dislodged his glasses, his flashlight, and his other sandal. The speed was incredible, like falling sideways attached to a horizontal bungee cord. After a millisecond of acceleration, he was through the wood slat door, and it slammed immediately closed after he was behind it. The piping began a moment later, drowning out the muffled screams of the man. When dusk gave way to a dark, moonless night, The elderly lady pushed an expensive-looking bicycle across her backyard and into the garage. They were so much easier to dispose of as parts. Despite the basement's sealed windows and the piles of dirt covering the exterior opening, she could hear the melodious piping coming from the cellar. She smiled and began disassembling the bicycle, while humming in tune with the piper's song.